then it has an outlet side on the other end of the fan that goes to the outdoors, and they are sweet.
Can I still use the housing from my old one on the ceiling just so it looks like I have a traditional bath fan? Because they're so elegant.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McCoe. Today I'm joined by video producer Colin Russell.
Hey there.
Digital brand manager Rob Wadsack.
Hey.
And our longtime producer Jeff Rose.
Howdy.
You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Please email your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. It is great to see you guys. Thanks for doing the show this morning.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. I guess I'm going to go first. So, Jeff came over yesterday to solve a small technical dilemma that we had with our recording system, as sophisticated as it is. But he brought by a new cable, and I was telling him that at one point in my truck that the tensioner that keeps the accessory drive belt the right amount of taut had failed, and it was ruining my accessories one by one since I've replaced it. So I've already replaced the alternator, I replaced the tensioner itself, and an idler wheel. And I told Jeff yesterday the only thing that hadn't failed was the power steering pump and the water pump. And yesterday I went to replace the AC compressor, which has also failed. I had it taken to the shop and evacuated, and I was going to swap the compressor this weekend. So last night I thought I would take out the belt and see what I was into. As soon as I did, that water started pouring out of the water pump onto the ground. So that's the other thing that is now failed. So you can get that in a day from Amazon, amazingly.
Wow.
So you're going to have a completely new truck when you're done, huh?
A new old truck remodeled.
I'm really, wondering if I want to get involved in the water pump. I've never done one. I know the fan's not going to come out easy and all that stuff. Go ahead, Rob.
It really all depends on the car. Like some engines are just really easy to get to. Some use really crappy bolts that corrode and get stuck in there. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm doing this weekend. I won't bore you guys with the details. What I actually might do is call it and have it towed over to the shop. get it out of my lawn. Colin, it's been forever since you've been on the show. What have you been up to?
Well, personally, my ongoing saga of remodeling my house piece by piece while living at it, Actually, last time we talked, I think I had started tackling the kitchen and ripped out the staircase when my wife and daughter went on vacation. Rebuilt that, but I haven't completely finished it. There's no railing, and we love the stairs look so good without a handrail. You ever notice that?
Yeah. It kind of clutters everything up, right?
I think there's kind of a code violation there, but I'll just have to dig deeper into that one. But
existing conditions, you get some leeway, right?
Well, yeah, in most parts of the world, except for our country, you can pretty much do whatever the heck you want with your stairs. People are like, it's up to you to keep yourself safe. I don't know how I feel about that, but
it's funny. One of the more common reasons people write into Fine Homebuilding magazine is to comment on the stairs in what are custom homes that don't have handrails or the balustrades don't meet the rules. And
so funny. I shot a pretty modern house. I think it was in Vancouver, actually, and had a beautiful staircase. And it didn't spiral, but it turned back on itself a little, and you could see the whole going up in the whole entryway. It was beautiful and had no railing. We're like, how do you get away with that? They opened a closet, and the builders had designed this like Velcro system for you could put this, and it's not like it even looked that bad, but I think they were plywood panels and sanded and stained, but there was this railing system you could install for if the building inspector came over or if you're selling the house.
Or if you had a, raucous party, right? You could keep people from falling down the steps.
Yes, there's that. But the big news is that my wife asked me, she said, can you just gut the downstairs bathroom tomorrow and get that done already? So
Wow. So what are you doing?
I'm going to completely gut the bathroom and transition from a bathtub to a 4-foot wide, just walk-in shower. I was going to originally go curbless, but I've decided against that. Too many like framing complications in an old house that wasn't designed for it.
Yeah, and it introduces a whole new set of problems, I would say. Keep it simple.
So you're going to elevate the pan above the joists altogether then?
Yeah, I'll sit the pan on the subfloor. I bought I believe it's called, called Tile Ready.
Yeah.
So it actually looks like a spray foam, like a foam pan, like just the color of it, it's lightweight, but it's just ready to accept tile. So it looks like a really easy solution to having, a dry base underneath my tile.
And if I'm not mistaken, you actually epoxy the tile to this thing, right?
I haven't gotten that far.
Oh, well, I remember covering this for the builder show. It was one of the things that I saw that seemed pretty cool and problem solving because it's already waterproof, right? And
exactly. Yeah. So, because I was, I could have gotten into a Schluter waterproofing system or done a mud pan or whatever. But this was like when you're a guy who's like has a full-time job and is trying, fitting your work days in, you need quick solutions. So for the $600 for the base, I thought it was really worth it, because I'll drop it once the floor is level, I'll drop it in and it's done in 5 minutes.
Yeah, you could conceivably shower the same day, right? If you were on your game.
Well, I don't know about that, but in terms of like doing a mud base and, I don't have 3 weeks to do a bathroom. I have to just be really,
Have you done a tile shower before?
Yes. Yes.
Did you like it? Did you like doing that work?
No, I don't. I don't mind tiling as much as I hate grouting. Like, to me, it's like I even like building, but I don't like painting what I build. So for some reason, those types of anything,
the fussy stuff,
the stuff that is closely related to cleaning, I do not like. The painting just feels like you're just cleaning all day. It's just like, I'm like, not my thing.
Well, I wish you great success with that, man. What an ambitious project.
I'll take some pictures and we can laugh at me the next time I come on.
She isn't worried about the staircases unfinished before going into the bathroom?
No, because the idea is before my daughter's going into her senior year, before that starts, and we're going to have, bathroom chaos in the mornings. Let's get this thing done.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Jeff, what have you been doing? You doing anything as exciting as us?
No, not really. I was mostly helping my wife on a project over the weekend. So
she was doing a video shoot?
Yeah, well, she was working on a set, so I was building some elements for that. So.
Do you like that kind of stuff, set building?
Yeah, I mean, these were just little decorative elements. I made a fake clock.
That sounds way more fun than making a real clock. I gotta say. Rob, and you continue to work on your tractor, I'm guessing.
No. I actually took a week off from that. I did buy some parts for it, though. I bought a pieces of a 3-point hitch to put that back together. But I didn't touch it at all this week. I spent all of last weekend cleaning out my barn and my basement. I'm determined to unload 20 years of junk from this house and make it a peaceful, clutter-free place. And but.
Whoa! This is really a change of heart for you. What's going on?
Well, I mean, I do it in phases. Like I have to kind of ease myself into it. But it's it's amazing how many projects you just have lying around that you're like realistically
you have lying around. I don't know that all of us do.
Well, yeah. Realistically, I'm never going to get to that. It's just in my way, and I'm kind of getting to the point where I just want it to be peaceful. But I did bring some other stuff home. I've been searching on Facebook Marketplace for months and months and months for a cheap table saw, and it's ridiculous what people want for even a used Craftsman 30-year-old table saw. And then I see this one ad, and it seems like all the really good free stuff ends up being in my neighborhood. It was one of my neighbors it was a dismantled one of the heavier duty Craftsman table saws with the really nice cast iron top with the wing.
Yeah, this
extensions. Thing
probably dates to the 50s or 60s is my guess. Maybe the 70s.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was dismantled, and so she didn't know if it worked, and so she had it up there for free. She was just giving it away, and she had somebody who was going to come pick it up for scrap, and I'm like, no. So I went over there with my hand truck and dragged it home, and even though it's got a nice heavy top on it, the fence on it is it's like a piece of sheet metal, and it's no good. And I remembered years ago, I have no idea where I got this thing, but I found this fence. And the big heavy duty table saws, like shop saws, have those, what is it, Besmeyer? It's like those big heavy angle iron and square tubing fences. And I was going to make one of those. And then I found this thing, and I don't know where the heck I got it, but it's another similar type of fence where it goes on like a big aluminum channel, and and it's just like really adjustable and heavy duty, and you can attach like feather boards and all kinds of crazy stuff to it. So I didn't think I had all the parts, so I was running around to like Home Depot and Tractor Supply looking for parts to try to make it. And I was like, let me just look one more time. And I went out to the shop, and in a huge pile of scrap metal, I dragged out the big bar that bolts to the table saw itself. I didn't even know.
When you get rid of all your stuff, you're gonna be in this same situation in the future and be really sad.
I know. I go through that. I definitely mourn the loss of my junk. but at the same time, I spend way more time stressing out about the piles of stuff in my way than I do mourning the loss of the handful of things that I think I need. And I feel like it's worth it now just to buy the stuff if I'm missing.
Or you can just look on Facebook and get it from your neighbors, seemingly.
Well, yeah,
that's like a pretty great thing.
And the hunt is kind of fun too. So, right. But I actually mounted this thing on the base of some other even more ancient Craftsman table saw that I bought a couple of months ago for $20, that someone had built this beautiful wooden, like mortise and tenoned, like table for. I mean, it's not beautiful by like furniture standards, but somebody put in a lot of effort into it to make a nice workshop table. And I scrapped the sheet metal legs from the newer Craftsman, and I'm gonna build a really nice outfeed table on this thing, so I have like a 4-foot square surface to work.
What are you gonna make on your new table saw?
I don't know. But
it is the project.
There's so many projects like, oh, I need a shelf in the bathroom, and because I've never had a dedicated shop space, it's like, okay, I gotta find a nice day to drag my portable table saw out onto the lawn, and now I'm like setting this thing up. I was researching dust collection systems, and I'm going to set it up so that, like, if I want to build a shelf, I'm just going to walk down to the basement and build it and be done with it,
Man, I know who to call if I need shelving.
Yep.
So I have it on, insider knowledge that the Fine Woodworking shop is quickly evolving and may be ready for woodworking. So I hope your effort isn't wasted building a table saw, because my guess is there's going to be some brand new machinery. I hope the Fine Woodworking folks don't rat us out that I know about the new shop there, because I bet they wouldn't want us to know.
Well, Patrick, we're going to have a small space in the same building adjacent to their shop. So all we have to do is sneak through the door into their shop. We'll have complete access.
Sweet. That's cool. I didn't know that. So that'll be our little set. Cool.
I'm hoping that you and I, the next set of tool videos we do, might be able to be shot there.
That'd be great, because I'd much rather make drywall dust in that space than my own.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. So this comes from our friend, landscape architect Jim Colins, who was on Pro Talk. For those of you who didn't hear, it was very good. Hi, Patrick. Was catching up and heard the question in episode 368 from Dyami. It made me think of this company's wares. He sent me a link to solventfreepaint.com. They have a great range of products, and specifically that great Falu red color for the barn lovers out there. What the heck is Falu? Do you guys know what this is? F-A-L-A-U? F-A-L-U. Anyway, they're based with organic linseed oil. I personally have not tried them, but would say the history of Sweden would trump my lowly experience anyway. So I guess they come from Sweden. Keep up the great questions and even better answers. Well, the answers are coming from you today, Jim. Thank you for that. Have you guys heard of this paint?
No. I did look it up, though. It's like something that's been around for hundreds of years in Scandinavia. And I think the key, they say, is that it's made from purified linseed oil, which is I guess they get all the proteins and stuff out of it so that
it doesn't get moldy.
It doesn't get moldy. Yeah. So, and you ever look at pictures of some of these northern Scandinavian towns? Like you'd think you're in the tropics because they're the colorful houses, multicolored houses. So they must have this stuff in a lot of different shades. Because I guess if you're in the dreary north where it's like winter for 9 months out of the year, you add some color to your house to kind of.
It's just so you can tell it from the difference, between the houses in the neighborhood, right? You need it to be a different color so you don't walk up to the wrong one in the fog. Hi, Fine Homebuilding podcast crew. I was just listening to podcast 364 while wrapping up a kitchen install on my job site. The podcast keeps me going on many long days as a solo carpenter in Vermont. On podcast 364, there was mention of using epay as a possible building material. I think you suggested that, Rob. I would just like to elaborate that using any rainforest product has major climate implications, and that producers like epay should have big red warning labels before use. Thanks again, longtime listener Ross. What do you say for yourself, Rob?
I was actually just having a talk with my dad about cypress, and cypress is really common down south.
I think you're dodging the question.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. As much as I want to be environmentally responsible, I feel like we can't do. Well, I guess we could do everything environmentally responsibly, and hopefully someday will. But I was just talking with somebody this morning about that. It's like a friend of mine was in her pollinator garden, and she is basically creating a wildlife habitat in her backyard. And most of the houses in our town are monocultures of lawn and handful of shrubs. So I don't know. I'm not saying that that's not a valid point, but I got to work myself up to being 100% environmentally responsible.
So here's what a smart friend of mine said to me one time. We were both in the lumber business at the time, and that might have something to do with his thoughts. But he said you have to give value to forests for them to be protected. And one way to do that is to do logging, right? If trees have a commercial value, people do a better job of making, ecosystems that work. And, I don't know. I've thought different ways about it in my life, and it's a hard question, right?
Yeah, and I know a lot of the rainforest lumber is certainly not harvested responsibly, but I feel hopefully as time goes by, we're getting better and better at monitoring that and preventing any of that from entering our market. But I honestly, can't say I know enough about all the intricacies of it to make. It's hard to make decisions about life cycle analysis about all the products that we use. Like it's really hard to know where everything is coming from and what the big picture is.
What do you think, Colin?
Well, I guess I'm thinking like, what's the alternative? What was the use for the IPA? Were they for like 4x4 posts? Something that's going to have longevity. You can use a composite post. It's composite, right. Better for the environment. Responsible logging, as far as I know, is a good thing. Whether we're getting responsibly, log materials is another, right? I don't know.
It's complex. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, there's always a trade-off, and unless you know the whole history of every product, you never know the answer to that. What's the best in that term.
I think one safe bet is if you can buy stuff that's grown and harvested locally, and that seems like a good way to go, but it's difficult to get grade stamps on stuff like that sometimes. I hear some states from listeners that some states will let you use locally sourced lumber with some stipulations, but that's kind of cool.
I don't think Connecticut grown epay is very popular.
Well, I'll tell you, I put it on my back stoop, which is a very small deck. I don't think I could ever afford to put it on a big patio or a big porch or deck, but because it's a protected and well-used area, and I found that was the best wearing product for it. But yeah, it's like, you talk about materials. It's like the life and wear qualities of the material are a big part of it too.
So our longtime friend Jonathon in Silver Spring, Maryland wrote in, hello, it's been a while and I have a few updates for you, the crew. You've covered air quality and VOCs in the podcast and in the magazine. Geeks like us might find it interesting to know that equipment designed for space cannot be made with any VOCs. The reason? In a near-zero atmospheric pressure environment, the VOCs release suddenly and could condense on the surface of a lens of sensitive electronics. Even microscopic condensation could interfere with precise measurements of scientific instruments or signals from communication equipment. Good luck servicing it up there. You've also discussed which power tools are a must-have for DIYers. I've slowly accumulated a hodgepodge of power tools from various brands, but recently stumbled upon a great website to buy a wide assortment of affordable power tools from a reputable family of brands. You've mentioned Tektronic Industries before. Tektronic owns major brands like Ryobi and Rigid, among others. They sell certified pre-owned, returned, and factory blemish tools direct to consumers at directtools.outlet.com at discount. They even have a physical outlet store in South Carolina. The blemish is usually a misprint on the packaging or a superficial dent or scratch, nothing that would affect the performance. Everything functions perfectly on the router and planers I've purchased from them. It's a great place to look for anyone on a budget. Well, that's a great suggestion. I love reconditioned power tools. I've bought them all my life. They're often like 60% of, new, or at least they used to be. Have you guys had any experience with this stuff?
I've certainly bought things that are reconditioned. I mean, like he pointed out that oftentimes it's not first, certainly they're not going to sell something that's not functioning properly.
And they have the normal warranty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The warranty is there. The last I bought most recently two Bosch sanders, a 5-inch and a 6-inch, and they were a steal. He goes on the topic of concrete and global warming, after 2 years of lobbying for sidewalks, my county just finished installing more than a mile of new sidewalk in my neighborhood. I watched with glee as truck after truck poured concrete into the forms. They had to remove 47 trees, but the county planted 140 new street trees to make up for the loss. For a time, I was simultaneously the most hated and beloved person in my community. I still get great satisfaction seeing the sidewalk opponents enjoy a nice walk on the new sidewalk. Until next time, Jonathon. I don't know, Jonathon. That's a little hostile, but anyway. I bet you would love sidewalks in your neighborhood, Colin.
Oh, I wish we had them.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of little streets and everybody's out walking, but it would be great if they were walking on the sidewalk.
I bet Rob would say having a sidewalk in your town is not all it's cracked up to be, keeping up with it and stuff like that. Right, Rob?
Well, I mean, our town, we're actually responsible for our sidewalks. Like,
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think the town will chip in some money if you decide to redo yours, which is basically why my neighborhood sidewalks are a mess. But yeah, I don't know. I like sidewalks. I like to walk. So, Colin, you've got all kinds of, once you go to the end of your street, though, it's all kinds of nice walking paths and trails along the water, though, aren't there?
Not along the shoreline. You have to go to like one of the state parks, like Silver Sands Beach, and they do have like a lot of, wood paths,
Can you walk in there, Colin, without paying the gate fee, or is that everyone pays?
I believe that one is free.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
I think in Connecticut they're all free now for residents. That's part of your car registration.
Oh, interesting.
I got to go to the beach more, I guess.
Come on.
When I get my truck fixed, that's the first place I'm driving.
Hey, can I allude back to his first comment when he's talking about space? Is he saying there's no OSB on the space shuttle? Or the space station?
I don't know how they get that stuff to fit without Sashco sealant. I tell you, it's like, well, how do people breathe if there can't be condensation on lenses of? I mean, I don't understand.
But the water vapor is different than
chemicals.
VOCs. Yeah.
Okay. We have some smart people listen to this show.
Well,
We're not really sure what Jonathon does for a living, but I have some clues now.
so I've heard on that topic though, I've heard that it's a lot of times when you got a new car, the haze that starts to form
Oh,
on the
totally.
inside of your windshield
Yeah,
is
that's
from
all
the
plastics
plastics
off-gassing.
off gassing. So that's
Yeah.
pretty much what he's talking about.
So the space station doesn't have that new car smell, we can assume. This comes from Joel. Greetings, Fine Homebuilding podcast. First off, thank you for the quality information and content you produce. The whole crew is absolutely top-notch. I'm a skilled DIYer. I have skills and experience in almost all facets of remodeling. However, my next project is something I've not tackled before. I will be painting my 1981 ranch home in Cincinnati, Ohio. The home is clad with vertical cedar channel siding on the front and horizontal cedar clapboard siding on the sides and rear. I've reviewed all the literature in your newly curated painting section on the website. It was fantastic, by the way. Shout out Rob Watzak. I am confident in all the prep and application steps, but I'm struggling in selecting the proper material to paint the house with. Sadly, I do know any remaining material from when the home was last painted. As best I can guess, based on conversations with neighbors, the home was last painted 10 years ago. I had no idea if the home was covered in solid stain or flat paint. And from the research I can find, I do not believe there is a way to tell what material was used. Does it matter if I use paint or solid stain? As I understand it, there is a minimal difference between the two products, but there is some. The home will be painted in a darker gray color. It was one of those products preferred when painting a is one of those products preferred when painting a darker color. If I use paint, I am planning on going with a high-end product that provides UV protection and mildew resistance, along with a lifetime product warranty. Okay, so I could go on, but the gist of it is this: Joel doesn't know if his house is painted or has solid stain. Are you guys familiar with these different paint chemistries?
I mean, not so much the chemistry, but I know that I like to use the solid stain when I can because it's not a thick material, so it's never going to flake off like a paint would.
You nailed it, Rob. The difference between paint and solid stain is that, the amount of stuff in there. And the solid stain is meant that you don't have to scrape it when it's time for a redo, right? It's meant to kind of wear off on its own and stay, lighten and get thinner with time. And then when you put a new coat on, it renews it. So my guess is that solid stain on the house from what it looks like to me. And it's very hard to tell, as suggest. And you guys have any further thoughts on this?
I mean, yeah, it has that kind of like weathered look that the solid stain would get. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of body on there, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was. But as far as telling what it is, I don't know. We had a question in the forum where people were asking about this too, and I don't know if that's a tricky thing to do.
I don't think it's important, right? I think you put on there what you want to have put on there the second time. And if you want it to last longer, put on paint with a understanding that you're going to have scraping to do the next time it's time to paint. But if it's 20 years from now, who cares? If you put on solid stain, you might have to do it in 10. And I think 10 years is a good lifespan for a solid body stain. And you won't have as much or any scraping to do if you do that. But you're going to have to do it more.
Well, when we look at the photos he sent, like, we're not sure whether it was paint or stain, right? It's sort of a guess. Is there an issue with staining over existing paint? Because what you said earlier, like, is it going to peel at some point? So, like, do you get the benefit of a stain by putting it over paint? And, like, how much work would he have to do here? Does he need to get down to bare wood? Or
No.
you know what I mean?
No. It needs to be washed, and it needs to have all the mold and mildew taken off of it, and it needs to have the dirt washed off it, most importantly, so the new product adheres. And I don't think you want to put solid stain over a previously painted surface, but I would say the surface of this house's siding, you could do either one given its present condition, from what I know about it. But I'm not a pro painter. Hopefully someone who knows more about this than us will weigh in here in the future.
Yeah, I mean, was it you, Patrick, who did that article, the 10 with Philip Hansel a bunch of years ago, 10 tips to paint like a pro? I mean,
Yep.
Really, prep is really one of the main things. Like, if there's loose material on there, you got to get that all off. You got to clean it. You got to clean the surfaces. And there's a whole. I'll put a link in the show notes, but It's an article on our site called 10 Tips to Paint Like a Pro, and it's all about exterior painting prep. And then Scott Gibson wrote an article just not that long ago that was why pay more for paint. And I mean, from my experience and from everything he said in this article, you get what you pay for. Don't cheap out.
The
Don't
paint
cheap
is
out.
such a small percentage of the cost of a paint job in terms of either your own labor or someone else's labor. Like, it makes no sense to buy cheap paint in my mind,
No.
even for the cheapest projects, because it helps protect what's underneath.
And it's not even just the how long it lasts, but the application properties of paint. Like, I bought one of those cheap 5-gallon buckets of paint, some cheap paint at one of the big box stores to paint the ceiling in my basement, and that was stupid. I was just like, oh, it's just the ceiling. I don't really care how it lasts or whatever. Well, it was a nightmare. The stuff was like raining off the ceiling.
Oh, gosh.
And a good ceiling paint, just that's why it's sold as a ceiling paint, because it has the properties where it doesn't drip off the roller. It doesn't, it goes on and covers nicely, covers well. Every time I do something that I really care about paint wise, I go to one of the local like real paint stores, whether it's like, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, where they actually have people who know their products and are full-time people on staff there who can advise you on the right.
Yeah,
products.
and I would say go a step further and call the technical assistance line on the can, because those are really the people who know paint. I've heard some dubious information given out at paint stores by hardware store folks. You know what I mean? Like, they know what they know, but they're not chemists.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like, I wonder how many people actually think to do that, but we've talked to a lot of those people directly, including on the podcast, the technical support people. In fact, I kind of want their job, because it's like all they do is like research, they get to learn about the properties of all these products when they don't have calls. And then they spend all their time trying to solve these, solve people's problems and, take it a notch up from what we're able to do.
I don't know what I would do personally if I would paint or stain. I like the look of stained vertical siding, especially. I think it looks fantastic. I painted mine because I didn't want to do it often. All right, so thanks for taking my question on this subject in podcast 368. This comes from Tom. I was dumbstruck when I heard that there was a very recent article on the subject of sealed crawl spaces. It was with great shame that I acknowledge I had not read issue 299, as clearly pointed out by Matt Milham. And my dog ate the homework like defense. I can only say that I looked for that issue in my stack of FHB magazines and found it missing. I then remembered it came while I was working on installing mini splits for an impatient resident on the very project I wrote to you about. I had set it in a safe place for a later read, and of course, within days, it was covered up. Anyway, thanks for going on and answering the questions definitively. Along with reading all of issue 299, I also saw in issue 252 that Martin Holliday recommends 1 CFM per 50 square feet of crawl space to minimize air drawn into the conditioned crawl. I'm a little surprised it's not measured in cubic feet. In my case, it would equal 17 CFM. And looking around for a continuously rated fan under 20 CFM, I found very little. I did find this one, an Air Titan T3 model that has a controllable speed and can throttle down to 12 CFM at its lowest setting. Do any of you have experience with this unit? No. Is there a better one in the same volume of airflow range? I don't know.
Honestly, a lot of times I find that our listeners do their homework really thoroughly
well
before they answer the questions. I took a look at that fan, and it's a sharp looking fan, and it's really affordable. I can't.
Yeah.
That makes me worry. That makes me worry. What do you think about this, Colin?
What is he trying to do? Exactly, because
So if you seal up your crawl space and insulate it and condition it or semi-condition it, you're supposed to have a continuous ventilation rate, to keep, I don't know what to do, but anyway, yeah,
but is air going out, or is air coming in, or that it's flowing through, and where's the air coming from? Because if they're
it's
talking
coming
about,
from the house.
you're pulling house air into your crawl space.
Yeah, I believe so.
And pushing it outside. Or
No. So
it goes back
it's one
into
or
the
the other.
house.
It's either you're
Yeah.
venting. In crawl space, you would either be venting to the outside if it's sealed from the conditioned space, or if it's sealed within the conditioned shell of the house. You want to make sure that it's getting air in there.
You're conditioning it. You're adding heating and cooling to make it closer to the rest of the house, right?
and
Yeah,
this
so that
fan is controlling that air movement. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a more
Yeah.
reliable way than just like having grills or what have you, and relying on the stack effect or whatever to mix the air.
For $70,
Yeah.
man, try it.
I mean, seriously, it's worth a shot at that price. But I mean, it's the thing I like about it is that and this is something, because I was trying to do a similar thing, not for a crawl space, but for some of the rooms in my house that aren't heated well by the mini splits. I wanted to try to get a thermostatically controlled exhaust fan that was like a quiet, like bathroom exhaust fan, and I was like having a hard time finding a nice, elegant solution for putting a 120-volt fan with a.
I got it. I got a solution for you and Tom.
Really?
It's Fantech. It's this company that makes high quality inline fans, and they're the better people to ask about this subject, right? And they have speed controllers to make this thing throttle down, and they last for 10 years. And they use very little energy because they're really well balanced, and they have these DC motors in them, and they're sweet. I totally geek out over, high quality ventilation fans.
I know you actually included a link to one of the fans that I think I have the similar model in my bathroom, and it's one of those ones where you can set a remote bathroom fan so that you don't actually hear it in the bathroom because it's up in the attic and it's ducted. And they're beautiful machines, but like in this situation, the nice thing I like about this fan is it's a packaged solution that also looks really nice. Like it's a sharp looking thing that you just screw to the wall. Whereas like when I was like trying to piece my system together, I was like, well, I got to buy a separate grill and I got to put an electrical box in for this controller and all this stuff. This thing looks pretty nice. I don't know. I think I might buy one too.
Colin, have you used one of these remote bath fans that Rob and I are talking about?
No.
So you're going to want this in your new bathroom.
Yeah, I don't want to switch. I want it remote.
What?
What do you mean by remote?
It's
the unit is
remote
outside?
mounted. It's
So
located
the motor
remotely.
and the fan, blade are away from the inlet grill. They're not like in a
I
housing.
definitely want that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you connect it with Ductwork, flex duct typically to stop the noise transmission to an inlet, a grill, and then the fan is up in the attic or in a crawl space or in a closet or whatever, and then it has an outlet side on the other end of the fan that goes to the outdoors, and they are sweet.
Can I still use the housing from my old one on the ceiling just so it looks like I have a traditional bath fan? Because they're so elegant.
I'm sure you could make it work if you really felt like doing it.
Oh, you could totally make that work. Yeah.
No, that sounds awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah, I don't like bath fans are
Terrible.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen them on display, but they have like the noise, the CFMs, or what are they called? CFMs?
Decibels.
Decibels,
Yeah.
It's decibels, right? And it's like, yeah, it makes a difference.
But I'll tell you what, though, the one in our downstairs bathroom I have not switched out because my wife likes how noisy it is. So it's the room like that people go use when their guests over, and it's close enough to all of the public rooms in the house that she likes the fact that the noisy fan masks the sound of bathroom noise.
It's like a white
activities.
noise machine.
Acoustic privacy is how I've heard it described. Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe we should develop a product that just makes the sound in your bathroom.
Yeah, it's called a speaker, man.
No. You know what, Colin? In Japan, they have that in public restrooms. They have a little button that you press that makes noise to mask the sound of you using the bathroom.
Oh,
Let
my
me guess.
goodness.
It's like a waterfall sound or something, right?
Something like that.
I don't know what to say about bath fans other than most are terrible. Most are installed badly. The ductwork has to be smooth for them to work well. Most, like you were pointing out, Colin, at the home center, they have the CFM rating, but that assumes like perfectly installed ductwork. Most are not. So folks, in order to get them to really work, get, one with more CFM that makes in turn more noise because it's still not flowing enough air, but
right.
And there's one key thing that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of, and Matt kind of had the extreme a version of this problem. He talked about it on a podcast a while back, is that if you live in a cold place and you have a bath fan that vents to the outdoors like it's supposed to, chances are pretty good that by the time that water gets towards the moist air gets towards the outside, it's going to condense on the inside of the ductwork. And if your ductwork isn't pitched in the right direction, you could potentially have water either pooling in there or worst case, like Matt had, I think, it was draining back into his ceiling above his
That's
bath
a real
fan.
common problem, yeah. So you should have insulated ductwork, which helps keep that stream of warm, moist air get out of the building, right, before it cools off. And smooth ductwork with smooth bends is better than, wrinkly ductwork. How do you in your first floor bathroom, Colin? I'm assuming the ductwork runs in the floor system. Is that how you have that arranged presently?
Ceiling. It's
so
in
it goes straight
space.
up. Mm.
The ductwork, you mean from the fan?
Fan, yeah.
It goes out just straight across the rafters and then straight up through the roof. So if there's condensation, it's not getting out.
It's accumulating in the pipe, right?
Yes. I'll let you know tomorrow when I rip it out of the ceiling.
When 2 gallons of water spills out onto the
moldy
ceiling.
water. I can't wait.
You're going to find all kinds of horrible stuff up there, right?
Yes.
How's it insulated
luckily,
presently?
I blew 18 inches of cellulose up there, so it's completely. It's got the 100-year-old whatever they use for miculite. There's probably fiberglass, and then it's all topped with the stuff I blew in. It's going to be.
So are you going to leave the ceiling there to keep all that crappy stuff up there?
I'm going to go over the ceiling, but it's good. I'll still have to, the crawl space, it's very narrow. It's going to be hard to get in there. I may just take a different path, to get rid of the air. I'm not sure yet. I haven't gotten that far. I'm sort of a figure it out while I'm there kind of guy.
No, and I'm totally in agreement that, like, especially with bathrooms that have all kinds of mechanicals in such a small space, you really have to be thinking about them all at once, and you can't do that until you know exactly what you're dealing with. This is a great question that was on the Fine Homebuilding forum. This comes from TF 5003. This might be a pretty basic question, but how do you handle not knowing exactly how tall a lally column will be as far as ordering them from a supplier? I'm building a cabin this summer, and I'm getting 8'2" superior walls with precast column footers. Okay, do you guys know what superior walls are?
Those precast concrete walls that have the insulation embedded in them, right?
You are, like, really on top of your game today, Watsack. I am dazzled. Yes, so you order these from a company, they come on a truck, they set them with a crane, and you get your foundation the same day, which is pretty impressive.
And they basically come in big panels that they bolt together, and then they probably use some sort of polyurethane sealant between them, I imagine.
Sure. So the column footers, the tops will be set the same height as the bottom of the wall. So the column height should be 8'2" with a 1.5 inch sill plate. So they'll need to be 8 foot 3.5 inches. The beam they will be holding up will be in a pocket, and it will be 4 2x8s, making it 3.5 by 7.25. All right. Anyway, so that puts me. He's calculating. He needs like between a 7'6" and a 7'10" foot lally column. And for those of you who don't know, maybe lally column is a weird New England description for what amounts to a steel post filled with concrete that holds up the main girder in your crawl space of your basement. And I had never heard the term lally column until I moved to New England, so forgive us. But anyway, it's a very good question. How do you know how long to get these things, until all the beam is in place and the footing is in place? Because these things can vary during what's going on, right?
Aren't lally columns like lumber? You get it a little longer and cut it.
Yes, I mean they do cut them because basically what happens is you cut the metal and then
it breaks very easily.
You break it because the concrete's really just in there for compression. So once you cut the metal, even though it's concrete core, the concrete just cracks right where you break off the metal. But what he was actually pointing out, which Patrick failed to mention, was that he found out that he could get a different size in stock that was a couple of inches shorter than what he thinks he might need, and but it's also a lot cheaper. And so in his case, the available ones that he could get cheaper are actually too short. And so he was asking, what should you shim it with? And I was looking on some code enforcement forums, and these guys were kind of going back and forth about whether it should be plywood or metal or solid wood, and whether, wood or plywood compresses more. And a lot of them were saying they always prefer that people use steel shims. And you're not going to pick that up at the big box store, but you can certainly go to your local steel fabricator and have them cut some square chunks of steel,
So could this be tube, Rob? Could this be square tube, or does it have to be solid steel, which would be pretty spendy?
What I'm saying is that he could buy the 7'7", $80 columns, which he says are in stock locally. And then once he's got his everything's in place, and he knows what his final height is, it looks like he's probably going to have like an inch or two gap in the bottom of the, between the footing and the column.
Right, it's an inch or two too short.
Yeah, so then you go to the local steel guy and have them cut some chunks of steel that are the same size or a little bit bigger than those square pads that come on the top and the bottom of the lally columns, and you can probably have them punch some holes in them if you want to use fasteners, or you can just have them welded on site.
What do you think about this, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what's in my basement. I think having steel manufactured or cut would be pretty straightforward, because I've had 1/4-inch plate cut for me before.
For shims.
No, this was for cable trenches, but that's a whole different thing. Yeah,
Colin, I'm going to let you have a turn here, because I think you're going to have some strong insights on this.
Oh yeah, I think you should buy the longer ones.
That's what I'm saying too.
And cut them there, because if you're in this position where, okay, now I know my heights and I have to make a trip out to buy some steel, that's going to probably, between the time you're spending doing that and paying for the new metal, just get the one that, think of your time and how quick you can do this.
Get the right freaking lally column. And if you can't get it the right one right now, use a wood post temporarily. Like, the way I see most good builders do this is you put the final column in later. You can frame the floor system with temporary posts. There's no real load on it unless, like, some Einstein decides to put, like, units of plywood on the center girder, instead of the corner of the building. But, like, just this is what people do. You temporarily hold up the center girder with some wood posts, and then you put the lally columns in later. At the lumberyard I worked in, we used to cut them to the 16th of an inch for you and then deliver them. They had this amazing pipe vise, and they were set up to cut these things. They had a 3-foot long pipe cutter, which does a perfect round cut. And then, like, as Rob suggests, you hit it with a sledgehammer and the thing snaps right off. I've seen people cut them with a Sawzall too, and as you might imagine, it's a little more ragged, but that works as well. And I've also seen people run around them with a circular saw with either abrasive or metal cutting blade in it.
And literally just run around in circles, with the whole...
Just have someone turn the column if you can.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And just hold this. Yeah.
Interesting.
All kinds of dangerous ways to do this.
Well, so one of the things he mentioned was the taller ones had long lead times, so I guess that's kind of what I was factoring in. But certainly you're not going to save any money by buying shims from the local steel fabricator, I don't think, at the difference in price here. But yeah.
I think you could also get a telescopic...
the screw posts.
Well, yeah, I mean, those obviously come in different load ratings, but you can get them that are very strong. And, you could probably buy that at the home center and have it ready and dial it into the exact height once you start framing the floor.
Now, maybe they have different versions of those, but are those not rated for permanent installation, though? I feel like some places...
some are and some are not, Rob, as I understand it. And, of course, it's going to vary by where you are, but some of them are quite sturdy.
Well, I can tell you, since he's putting a new superior wall in, hopefully he's going to have, good vapor barriers on the outside of his concrete work there, his plastic underneath the slab and everything. It's probably not a concern with moisture, but I know from experience in my old basement that if you put a lally column directly on the concrete, that it will eventually start to rust pretty good on the bottom. And so whenever I put them in, I always put a little sheet of plastic or something underneath them just to as a break between the concrete and the...
You really are on top of your game today. Oh my, okay, so did you guys see this photograph or series of photographs sent to us by a listener?
Yes.
Can one of you describe it? I'm not sure I can do it justice.
So you're talking about the findings from the excavation of that guy's house in Michigan?
Yeah.
So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people on the podcast haven't already heard this, because my wife had seen it on some Facebook group. But basically some guy in Michigan was, what do you have, a house inspection, and they noticed there was something with the front stoop. The concrete steps on the front of the house were crumbling, and he started pulling some things apart and saw a couple of round spheres and started pulling bowling balls out. And he demolished the whole thing and some part of the foundation and ended up finding, 150 bowling balls?
They make great fill. I often work with bowling balls.
Yeah, well, actually, that's what he said. He said that the Brunswick bowling ball factory was in his town. I watched a video interview with the guy, and he's like, a lot of the old employees from the factory used to take the rejects home and use them as fill in their projects.
Do you know what a yard of bowling balls goes for these days?
I know. What supplier do you call for that? I want to see what happens when they pour out of the truck. That would be amazing, right?
Yeah, the only thing like that I found, my yard, for about the first 10 years I lived here, everywhere we dug, we found a pool cover. Because apparently the previous owner of our house had a lifetime warranty on his above ground pool covers. And so every time one would wear out, he would just get a new one. And then they would end up in the woods, buried near where the vegetable garden was. I even found one buried underneath the dirt floor in my basement.
Well, that was your vapor retarder, and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, he was ahead of the game with his building science there.
Here's the nut of it. Some of the plant's former employees who contacted Olson on Facebook used to take some of the scrap balls home with them for DIY projects, so they were much cheaper alternative to gravel or sand. That's fantastic. So, of course, folks who worked in factories in that period of time, and this was in the 50s, used to bring home stuff like I heard of, shipyard employees who would bring home bags of asbestos to insulate their attics with. So this is not that bad, but, I'm sure it was a shock to find the bowling balls arranged in like a pyramid under the concrete porch. That was hilarious.
But now, like they say, it's a cheaper alternative to buying sand. I mean, sand is... I can fill up my whole pickup truck with sand for about $10. And how long do you have to spend pulling? I mean, how many trips home with scrap bowling balls in the trunk of your car?
Well, you're going home every day anyway, right? And they're easy to carry. They got the holes drilled in.
Handles, man.
Yeah, and I'll bet you every single one of those people who worked at that factory has like dents in the trunk lid of their car from rolling around.
Every time they hit the brakes.
One of my more creative and delinquent friends in high school took an old bowling ball and rolled it down the hallway, and it made its way down 3 or 4 flights of steps before it was intercepted by the guidance counselor. But that was pretty hilarious, I gotta say. Bowling balls are funny. I don't know why. You guys have anything to add before we part company?
I don't think so. I said my piece.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks to Jeff.
Hang on.
What?
I forgot to mention. I forgot to mention that there is a new project guide live, a tiling project guide. And it's got, I spent all day yesterday publishing book excerpts because there's a tiling book that Taunton produced a bunch of years ago that we added a little bit to our existing archive from that book there. So, but something like 150 articles on tiling now on our website, organized in a nice, tidy chapter by chapter.
That's pretty cool. I think that's valuable work that you're doing there, Rob, to, categorize that. Tons of information, literally. It's like,
it takes a village. I'm just the gatekeeper. There's a whole crew of people at the company who are building these articles and pouring through our old archives to find the best content. So it's been a rewarding project, and hopefully eventually we'll get through every major topic on the website, and then we'll just kind of go back and just keep making them better and better.
I think we should cover Colin's tile-ready shower pan, because that's something I don't think we have. I mean, at least you'll have to tell us how it goes.
All right. Well, then I'm going to have to do some reading and do it correctly. Because if I need to use epoxy,
I think that's one. I mean, that was one of the rules then, but that might have changed. I don't know.
I mean, I could see setting tiles and epoxy in a shower pan, right?
There
a
are thousands of
that.
these installs out there, so these folks have figured it out, right?
Yeah. Certainly.
Well, make sure you're not done. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Jeff, Colin, and Rob for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive, and happy building.